Very cool. Come and take a seat. So we've been in our series now, Life Isn't Always Rainbows and Unicorns. This is our second week. So we're going to be talking about some heavy and raw stuff, but stuff that relates to all of us. And so, Warren, do you want to first introduce yourself? Tell us something interesting about yourself and your family. I'm just going to grab my questions. I left them on the seat.
How many of you guys know Jordan? Can you raise your hands? Well, I'm Jordan's dad. So we've been in New Zealand for about 3 years. I have 3 sons. At least we have 3 sons, Jordan, Nathan, and Joshua. And so I'm been really blessed to be a part of the church. The last 3 years has been a journey that has been like no other. So I'm really grateful, and I give all that glory to God.
Excellent. Well, in this new series, we're dealing with some topics that not all of us know a lot about, and some of us know a lot about them. So we want some of your experience and some of your advice. So what's currently happening in New Zealand that's a problem that you've been working with for the last few years?
The area that I work is actually on the exploitation of children or the underage, especially the sexual exploitation of children. But it's not a new topic. It has been around this world for eons. But New Zealand only lately has focused or given attention to the problem. This problem has been there for a very long time, whether it's one case or whether it's a percentage of the population, it does affect lives. So my work in New Zealand has been and continues to be driven by the fact that we can make a difference, and every one of us needs to play that role to make that change.
And you've been working to try and get people to connect to make a change, but have you seen the difference between what a kid knows about that area and what an adult knows about that area? Do you see like a generation gap?
Yeah, definitely, Zalia. I think one of the biggest problems, or one of the biggest challenges, it's not a problem, it's a challenge, is that my generation or the older generation thinks we know it all. But in fact, our kids, or if their kids or our grandkids, know even better. So the first challenge is, am I playing catch up? Am I surprised at the things that my kids do or my grandkids do? So I think, first of all, we need to accept the fact that there is a generation gap. In my time, when I was a young lad and I was growing up, my father was the greatest influence in my life. Today, that is saturated. There is so much going on around the world with so many platforms, social media platforms, youth groups, so that is a greater influence more than that individual in that family that can impact the trajectory of your child's journey or your life character building blocks. And I think it's important for parents, that's what we try to do now, is to identify, do you know that are you really making an impact in a child's life? Or are you playing dad and mom rather than being an impact on that child's life?
Yeah, that's it. And I think we've got a lot of different connections with the community and our church and that, but what are the most, obviously there's a number of different platforms, but what are the most common platforms that you would say that our community and our church needs to catch up with to be able to keep our kids safe?
When we use words like keeping our kids safe, these are very general terms. Understanding where our kids are, understanding their circles of influence, what is really influencing them, understanding that there is no safe place today. In the old days, my sister would be locked up in the house and say, you cannot go out of the house after 6 o'clock or something like that. Today, we have 3 characters that I always reflect on. One is a perpetrator, a victim, and a bystander. Unfortunately, most parents have become that bystander because the perpetrator is able to infiltrate the home and the safe places of most of our kids through our phones, through our PlayStations. Do we know that? So are we outdated as parents? And how do we actually cope with this is the biggest challenge. So talking about a common platform is, I reflect on 3 points. One is that we can address it clinically. When I say that, it's easy for me to say that word clinically. And usually that happens when we as a community or a family react to a child's or a young adult's situation rather than proactively approaching it. So after a situation happens or a challenge happens, then we react. That's a clinical approach. Emotional approach is, at least a life value approach is my second, and that is when you start planning out in a way that is consultative, it's collaborative, it's in discussion, it's in understanding my child and understanding where he or she is and walking that journey together so that you are actually, or we as parents are actually putting in place those solid foundations. So that's a common place. Now, what's unique about knowing Christ is the third aspect of it, and where we stand in our belief in Christ depends on where you are. That underlays this assurance of hope. I see that all over the world today, and that's unique. It's very close to hopeless, and we're always on this margin of being hopeless and always feeling lost out. But with Christ and that underlying kind of foundational, carpeting over that is such an important part that parents often could shy away from because we're not brave enough sometimes to call it out. We are not brave enough. We are worried about hurting our kids or our young adults, that particular challenge. But sitting down and talking and coming to common terms, common norms within that journey for that individual is a critical part of helping that young adult make it through life, at least that foundational stage of that life.
Yeah, thanks. And with the foundation, like you said, sometimes the parents may be the bystander instead of being proactive before things happen.
Yeah.
Obviously, in our church and in our community, some of our kids, we know it takes a village to raise a child, and that's what we all do. And sometimes we are being the parent as a youth leader or just as somebody in their church. So what can we as a church do, practically, to be able to, not be a bystander?
That's really a good question because we're doing so much. I think we are already doing so much that allows that individual, any one of us, whether we are old or young or just getting into the church, that common platform. So that's where that spiritual aspect of that commonality, where we identify with a supreme God that really connects with our journey. Whatever choice we have made, whatever mistakes we have made, the consequences of that is where God kind of works through us. And many out there do not see that aspect. They don't have that. So coming back to the church, I think one of the principal things that we need to have in place, and I think it is a critical part of the journey, is the follow-up. So I might say something here and you might be moved by it and say, yeah, I need help. If you identify with the fact that you need help, I need help. But who is there? Who do we have in place to provide that support? And then I go on my journey and I speak somewhere else. But the fact is that if that secondary layer is not there for support, then that it only reinforces that hopelessness in that individual. So I think you are doing so much. There is so much going on in the church, which is a secondary level, and I think that's already in place. One good thing is that how do we translate? How do we make that paradigm shift from identifying with that individual and putting that person or helping that person get into that right box or that platform? Yeah,
that's awesome. And there are a lot of areas that you can go to get help in Gracegate, and Wes is going to be sharing a little bit about that later, so make sure you take note or go to our wall in the foyer and take a flyer, so you can contact us. And yeah, I think our church is already doing a great job at looking after our kids, but there's so many more kids in our community, and we need to extend beyond these walls as well. So, Warren, just before you leave, can you just share with us why you're so passionate about this topic and protecting our kids, especially from sexual abuse or some kind of abuse? What's your heart behind it?
Let me start with the last in mind. Today in New Zealand, we have about 94% to 97% of kids, both boys and girls, who are sexually abused are by people they already know or close to them. So that itself shows how much urgent the need is for us as parents to really look back. It's not looking in the mirror, but reaching out to our kids and finding that common place. What drives me, I like to use this term, which is very catchy. It's a purpose-driven journey, and the purpose is if we can change one person's life, we have made, God has used us to change. That's the very purpose why we're here, why I'm seated here with Zalia, and why we're talking about this. If we can change even one person's life. So coming to the point that really kind of built the foundations on which I launched that passion is when I was about 7 years old, we had an electrician who came to wire the house and give us electricity. We used to, if you know for those who are old enough, understand the petrol max, the oil lamps that we used to have. We used to have those around the house. So the electrician who came was a good friend of my father's, and he was doing it for free, and he used to stay over. So he stayed for about 2 weeks in our house, and I was sexually abused at that time. But the fact that we all can identify is who do I tell? This is my father's best friend. Can I tell my mom? Who do I tell? At that time, at the age of 7, in that era, I guess the 7-year-olds today are much smarter, but at that time, you would just keep quiet. You just keep quiet. It's only when I was about 15 or 16 I began to think about this. And I remember Sri Lanka used to have all these old British double-decker buses that used to be sent to these third world countries from England to run on the streets there. And I was seated on the top deck, and I just started crying one day. And my younger brother Sherwin asked me, "Warren, what's up?" And I had to share it. That was the first time. I was about 17 years old. At that point, we have a choice. We can continue to beat ourselves and feel sorry for ourselves, or we can pick up those pieces, reach out for help, reach out to God, and use that to impact or change or save the lives of others. And I think that's what drives me.
Wow, that's so awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And it just shows that, it happens to anybody and everybody, and the whole thing of you keeping silent in that's something that we don't want anymore in our church. We definitely want to say, hey, we're here for you. You don't have to hold that in, and that's what we're going to be exploring today. So thanks so much, Warren, for sharing your heart and your story. Let's give him a hand.
Thank you.
For getting up in front of everyone and sharing something so vulnerable. It takes a lot of courage. And today, as we speak about a topic that I can't get up here and say I'm excited about, because it's something I don't like talking about. And I think it has to be spoken about, though, because it's something that is, as Zalia and Warren just shared, something that's happening very close to us, in our heart, in our community. And today, if you're sitting in church and you can resonate with some of the stuff that we're talking about, maybe you've been a victim of that, maybe you've been on the other end of that, I just want you to know that you're in a safe place today. As a church and as a church community, we will do whatever we can to get you moving forward in life, to make you stronger. The stuff on this back wall, we truly believe it. And today, as we speak and as we share a bit of thoughts, if something stirs in you, also know that after this program and throughout the week, there's a whole team of us here who you can talk to. You can grab a card in the foyer. We want to pray with you and not only just leave you today, but we want to journey alongside you and bring you back to the place where God actually wants you to be. So that's how we're going to start off today. And this past week, I got this cute little unicorn, all right? I was in Countdown of all the places. And like, who wouldn't buy this, right? It was $15 on special, all right? It was 25. And I saw it and I was like, man, this just goes so well with our series, right? And you know how often people, we say, hey, it's the elephant in the room. And today it's the unicorn in the room, all right? So that's what we're going to be speaking about. And I pretty much just taped his mouth because that's how we are. We're silent about this topic. And so, yeah, I don't know where we're going to put him, but just going to put him here. Is that cool? All right. Are you all with me today? All right. Today, we're starting a conversation. And I also want you all to know that I am no expert in this topic. All right. I honestly have, little experience in the topic that I want to share about today, which is sexual abuse and sexual violence. And but what I do know is that I believe in a God who is for us and not against us. And I believe in a church community, not just this program, not just this building, but stuff that happens in our daily life when we're with each other that truly does make a difference. So that's the platform that I'm going to be speaking from today. And I also believe that the Word of God, the Bible, is actually so informative to actually help us make wise choices in life. Through the teachings of Jesus and through the Bible, we can learn so much that is actually helpful for us, that can bring healing to us, and it can also help us make better choices next time. So today we're starting the conversation, and I thought if you don't know what we're talking about, I've got this definition, and this is what it says. It says sexual assault is not just forcible rape. Sexual assault is any type of sexual behavior or contact where consent is not freely given or obtained and is accomplished through force, intimidation, violence, manipulation, threat, deception, or abuse of authority. And it's quite interesting because in church we often don't speak about this, but wherever I look, it's happening all the time. People are speaking about it. Just this week, as I was browsing through the New Zealand Herald, constantly, article after article is addressing some of these topics. Interestingly enough, even these topics in the church, all right, and what is happening in the church, which is like, it makes me feel like this unicorn that just wants to throw up, all right, because it's happening in the church. And one of the reasons we thought about this series and we thought, hey, we actually want to speak about this is because most people are watching Netflix. And I don't know if you, someone who's watched 13 Reasons Why, but it's being communicated. People are speaking about it all the time. And this is a huge theme in that series. So pretty much, that's why we're speaking about it. And just to get us all on the same page, Warren shared a few stats, and these I just got off the internet that I want to share with you to help us understand why this is so real. Oh, before that, I want to share, these are 10 things that people who've actually experienced sexual assault say, hey, we want you to know this, all right? The first one is sexual assault can happen within families, all right? That's actually a high percentage of it happens in families. Sexual assault can happen to little children, Sexual assault can happen to adults. Sexual abuse can happen to men. Women can be sexual abusers. Goes on. Children can abuse other children. Sexual abuse can happen in public places, all right? In public places where everyone's around, it can actually happen there. The effects of abuse last a lifetime, all right? Last a lifetime. And I hope that, please don't get me wrong, today as we speak about this, I'm not thinking that you're going to leave with it just being off your shoulders if you've experienced this or if you know someone who's experienced this. Sexual abuse can happen within the church, and the church's response can both harm and help. And wow, yeah, I think the church has done so much damage in the context of this topic. So, here's some stats though, just so we're all on the same page. This is in the New Zealand Herald that I just saw this week. It was front page news that ACC is now receiving 21 claims a day which are related to mental or physical injuries from rape and sexual violence, up from 11 a day in 2013. All right, and they said, this could also be a reason because they are being a bit more lenient. ACC is being a bit more lenient on the cases. However, one claim a day is too much. In New Zealand, up to 1 in 3 girls will be subject to an unwanted sexual experience by the age of 16 years. In New Zealand, up to 1 in 5 women will experience sexual assault as an adult. There are varying rates for sexual violence offenses against males, but large-scale international prevalence studies have tended to find a figure of 1 in 7 boys. And let me just stop there. Actually, let me come back quickly, because to find stats on sexual abuse is very difficult, because no one actually really reports this stuff. There's a low percentage of people who actually report this stuff and actually, come out and share it with people. So a lot of these stats are estimated as well, but a lot of it is just, it doesn't get spoken about. It's like the unicorn with the mouth that's taped. Next one. In opposition to widespread myths about stranger rape, it is estimated that 90% of sexual violence is committed by someone known to the victim or the survivor. So just pretty much backing up what Warren shared there, that generally it's someone close to you, someone that is well known. Reporting of sexual violence in New Zealand is very low, with an estimated 9% of incidents ever reported to the police. Okay, 9%. And New Zealand has the 5th worst child abuse record out of 31 OECD countries. All right. How does that sit with you just reading that stuff? Because when I read it, it really makes me want to throw up. And the reality is that, as we speak about this topic, life isn't always rainbows and unicorns. What scares me is that this could be in our own church community. And some people are experiencing the hurt, the shame, that everything that revolves around this topic. So today I'm going to read a story, one that's actually found in the Bible, and I hope that as I read it and as I unpack this story, that the Holy Spirit is just going to speak to each of our hearts and give us what we actually need to hear and what God wants to say to us today. So here it goes. It's a story. It's found in the book of 2 Samuel. This is in the Bible, so a couple of weeks ago, you can remember I spoke about David, King David. So this is a story a bit about his sons, all right? So picks up in verse 1, chapter 13. It says, in the course of time, Amnon, son of David, fell in love with Tamar, the beautiful sister of Absalom, son of David. All right. Which characters do we have here? Quickly. Yes. Absalom, okay. And he is what? The son of David. And who else do we have here? Okay, Amnon, and he is the son of David, all right? And then who do we have? Tamar, all right? And what would she be then? The sister, all right? Of who? Absalom and Amnon, all right? They were half brothers, all right? So here we have the story where Amnon, all right, is falling in love. All right, this is what it says here. Fell in love with Tamar. Goes on. Amnon became so obsessed with his sister Tamar that he made himself ill. All right. She was a virgin and it seemed impossible for him to do anything to her. So Amnon is obsessed. He's not in love. He's obsessed. He's infatuated. His passion is driving his decision making. All right. And it says that, hey, he falls in love with his sister Tamar, that he becomes ill. That he's just like yeah. All right. Goes on. Now, Amnon had an advisor named Jonadab. Right, I didn't know how to pronounce that, and I just thought of Dab the whole time. So Jonadab, all right? Son of Shimeah, David's brother. Jonadab was a very shrewd man, all right? This Amnon, he had an advisor, all right? Advisor. In other words, someone who is speaking into his life and giving him counsel and direction, or we would probably call it a friend. All right, someone who was his friend. And this is what happens. He asked Amnon, why do you, the king's son, look so haggard morning after morning? Won't you tell me, why do you look so ill, Amnon? What's wrong with you? What's going on? He said, Amnon said to him, I'm in love with Tamar, my brother Absalom's sister. Whoa. Imagine your friend saw him going through a difficult season in life. You said, hey, what's going on? Why are you looking so ill? You know, I can just see you're not on the right track. What's up? And he says, hey, I'm in love with my sister. All right. Straight away, wouldn't it be cool now if we read the story and we see something so inspirational from Amnon's friend? But this is what happens. He says, go to bed and pretend to be ill, Jonadab said. He said, when your father comes to see you, say to him, I would like my sister Tamar to come and give me something to eat. Yeah, Jonadab, he encourages Amnon. He says, hey, if you love your sister, then let's work out this plan. All right, let's figure something out. Let me affirm your feeling, your obsession, and hey, maybe something could happen. Who are the people that are speaking into your life? Goes on. He says, let her prepare the food in my sight so I may watch her and then eat it from her hand. So Amnon lay down and pretended to be ill. And please just look at the word usage, pretended to be ill. When the king came to see him, Amnon said to him, I would like my sister Tamar to come and make some special bread in my sight so I may eat from her hand. Goes on. David sent word to Tamar at the palace, go to the house of your brother Amnon and prepare some food for him. So David sends his own daughter, all right, to Amnon's place. Amnon is scheming, he's creating this plan, all right, to be with his sister, encouraged by his friend. So Tamar went to the house of her brother Amnon, who was lying down. She took some dough, kneaded it, made the bread in his side, and baked it. Like, man, what a lady. What a sister. Going and, hey, my brother's ill. I'm going to go and help her out. Goes on. It says, then she took the pan and served him the bread, but he refused to eat. Send everyone out of here. Amnon said, so everyone left him. Amnon says, hey, get out. Everyone get out. I just want to be alone in this room with his sister. Then Amnon said to Tamar, bring the food here into my bedroom so I may eat from your hand. And Tamar took the bread she had prepared and brought it to her brother Amnon in his bedroom. But when she took it to him to eat, he grabbed her and said, come to bed with me, my sister. How messed up is this? What was going on in his mind? What was going on in his heart? What was driving his decision making? Tamar responds and she says, no, my brother, no. She said to him, don't force me. Such a thing should not be done in Israel. Don't do this wicked thing. Yet Tamar shouts out. She screams, no, don't be silly. This is dumb. This is stupid. You're not making wise choices here. Don't do this. In the whole of Israel, don't do this. This is a wicked thing. This is just wrong. This isn't going to be beneficial for you or me. And then she says, what about me? Where could I get rid of my disgrace? And what about you? You would be like one of the wicked fools in Israel. Please speak to the king. Like, hey, even speak to the king. He will not keep me from being married to you. In other words, hey, have a chat with David. And I think when I thought about this, I'm thinking she's just trying whatever she possibly can to escape, to say something, to get out. But yeah, he's got her. He said, but he refused to listen to her. And since he was stronger than she, he raped her. He raped her. Then Amnon hated her with intense hatred. In fact, he hated her more than he had loved her. Amnon said to her, get up and get out. And isn't this so crazy that this infatuation that he had, this obsession that he had, the thing that was driving his decision making, straight away, once he got it, he despised it. It was the worst thing for him. He chased her out. And that's what sin does to us. It's this whole big fascination. We're like, man, this is so good for us. But then it's like an assassination. It destroys us. It breaks our heart. No, she said to him, sending me away would be a greater wrong. Oh yeah, he sends her out and she says, no. She said to him, sending me away would be a greater wrong than what you have already done to me. But he refused to listen to her. And yeah, the story switches because now Tamar is even saying, man, I've been raped, but now don't send me away. Just let me be here. How crazy is this that this is now what is happening in Tamar's mind? He called his personal servant and said, get this woman out of my sight and bolt the door after her. Chucks her out. So his servant put her out, bolted the door after her. She was wearing an ornate robe, for this was the kind of garment the virgin daughters of the king wore. This is what she wore. Tamar put ashes on her head and tore the ornate robe she was wearing. She put her hands on her head and went away weeping aloud as she went. I just want to sit there for a while. Yeah. Tamar leaves with this disgrace, with this shame. And this is something I can't even comprehend, I can't understand, I can't fathom. I haven't experienced this, but the shame and the self-abuse that one does to themselves. Like, yeah, think about this. Where does it say? Tamar put ashes on her head. Ashes. Like she grabbed ashes and put it on her head as a sign of, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. I've been shamed. Her brother Absalom said to her, has that Amnon, your brother, been with you? Man, here comes Absalom, the hero to the story, right? He says, hey, has your brother been with you? She doesn't answer. He says, hey, do what? Do what? Be quiet. For now, my sister, here's your brother, woman. In other words, I'll interpret that. Hey, man, let's just keep this in the family. Okay, don't speak about it. All right, let's not say anything. Don't voice it out. I mean, this is shame. This is embarrassing. This is a humiliation for our family. And yeah, the first person she goes to, hoping that, hey, maybe her other brother would actually offer some support and some non-judgmental, advice or support or love, says, hey, let's be quiet about this. Don't tell anyone else. Don't take this thing too hard. And Tamar lived in her brother Absalom's house, and it says a desolate woman. In other words, here we even see that Tamar didn't even go back home to the king's palace, to the place where she thought it would be safe for her to be. She was sent away. When King David heard all this, he was what? Furious. All right, he is so angry about this. King David, I mean, this is his daughter. And then this is what it says. And Absalom never said a word to Amnon, either good or bad. He hated Amnon because he had disgraced his sister Tamar. What does it say about King David and what he did? Nothing. Because he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything. He was angry. He was furious, but he didn't do anything. Nothing. Doesn't even say he did anything for his daughter. I'm wondering about this whole thing of sexual abuse and sexual violence. And I mean, it's so hard to come out and speak about it. I mean, even in your own family. But what can we do? What can we do as a community? Or we as a community may be shutting our mouths, being very angry about it. I mean, yeah, we're angry about it. And we'll see later in the story that actually Absalom, he's furious about what happened. He hates his brother to the point where later in the story he goes and he kills him. He murders his own brother. Goes on then. Is there one more? Oh, that's it. All right. That's the story. I don't know how that sits with you, but what's interesting for me is that that's an old story, right? But I think it has so much weight and so many parallels to, hey, what some of us are experiencing in this community. There's a few things I want to just take from the story. Number one is this. Just want to get there quick. I want us to take and I want us to leave here knowing this story and hoping that this story will deepen your hatred for sin and silence. That when you leave here, you can just, through this story, you can see and you can picture that, hey, this doesn't sit well with me. This is something that destroys. It's not good for our soul. It's not good for our community. It's not good for anyone going through this. on both sides. Doesn't matter if you're the victim or if you're the victimizer, whichever side, this doesn't sit well. And I hope that this story can deepen our hatred for sin and also for silence. That it's in not saying anything that probably we could do the most damage. Number 2, I want this story to elevate our understanding of love. I want this story to elevate our understanding of love. Love is not what Amnon was feeling. He said he was in love with Tamar, but he was obsessed with Tamar. That is not love, all right? Love is not love is something you give and not expect anything back. It's not forceful. And yeah, we can see that love is not what Amnon was practicing. Love is not what Jonadab was doing. That is not love in a friendship way. That is not love, all right? He was encouraging his friend to go and do the wrong thing, all right? That is not love. And love is also not like David, who did nothing about it, who even sent his daughter away. That is not love. Today I want us, and I'm going to try and unpack this a bit, to help us understand what true love is. Because you see, I think there's a lot of parallels to the story of Tamar and to the story of Jesus. And I hope that also the third thing is that it can just open the door of hope. That the story can just maybe give you a glimpse that, hey, there is hope out there. That hope wins in the end. There's a story in the Bible about a man called Job. And if you don't know the story, Job is someone who's faithful, who's following God all his life. He's doing a great job. And, he also goes through a difficult time. Nothing he did, he didn't deserve it. There was nothing he did. It just happened to him. And he writes and he says this. He says, even if I am innocent, I cannot lift my head, for I am full of shame and drowned in my affliction. And I wonder, like Tamar was saying here, she said, hey, what can get rid of this disgrace? What can get rid of this shame? And honestly, I don't want to give you guys a cliche answer this morning, but I truly believe that there is hope in who Jesus is and what he's experienced and what he offers us. You see, he too was sent from his father's house to be honored and welcomed. He came to his own, and it should have been the safest place for him. But we did exactly what Amnon did. We betrayed him. He too came as a servant to serve, but we betrayed him. He too was violated. He was stripped, he was beaten, he was spat upon, he was pierced. He too was excluded. He was thrown out like trash. And he was left to suffer outside the city, hanging in agony on a cross. When this question is posed, like, what can get rid of the shame? Like, I just can't lift my head because there's so much shame. Like, I think there's someone who can relate to this. I think there is a guy who can relate to this. There's a book that these authors have written. I don't have their name now, but they wrote a book, and it's entitled, How to Get Rid of This Disgrace. And yeah, there's a few things that I want to take from this book, because there's a question that they ask, and this is the question they ask. They say, hey, the question is about identity, right? Because when something like this happens, and as we saw in Tamar's situation, she throws ash upon her head, she's just not knowing who she is anymore. There's a question of, who am I? Anyone, and the book says, who has had to endure this kind of experience will have struggled with the questions, am I spoiled goods? Am I a piece of trash? But then this is the important point that these authors write, and they say, the answer to the question, who am I? You need first to answer another question. And that question is this: of what story do I find myself a part of? They're writing for those who have been suffered, some form of abuse. And they say this: being a victim of sexual assault is part of your story that you should not deny, all right, or minimize. But if it becomes the story of your life, your whole identity will be founded on a sense of shame. They go on and they say the world will answer your questions of worth with affirmations of self-worth, self-esteem, and self-love. And these replies are insensitive to the suffering individual and do not answer the underlying problem of a distorted self-image. How do you receive? Think about it. How do you receive, or how do you give love when you believe that you are unlovable, that you are dirty, that you are worthless, that you are impure, that you are corrupt? How do you do that? Where can I go with my shame? That's the question. And the answer does not lie in a new story of loving yourself, even though that's a part of it. The answer lies in the great story of the Son of God who loved you and gave himself for you. There is love outside of yourself. And the Son welcomes you, receives you, holds you, and he will never let you go. Irrespective of the cost, even if it means laying down his life for you. Jesus Christ came into this world so that your life could be part of a better story. So that the worst thing that happened to you would not become the defining thing in your life. So that there could be a new chapter for Tamar, for you, and a new and a better story of hope. You see, I truly believe that there is power in who Jesus is, because he gives us the true identity of who we are. The last thing that I want us to leave with today is this point 4, and it's the power of healing words. Last week we spoke about bullying, and this morning we spoke about affirming one another. And I can't underestimate the power of healing words. But words have to be spoken. They have to come out of our mouth. They have to come out of our actions. Here's a few things that maybe we could do as a community, as a church. And hey, how can we do something about this? Here's a few tips. First one is these pictures, and it says, hey, instead of saying, why were you walking alone? Maybe we should say, hey, call me whenever you need. Whenever. Just call me. Maybe instead of saying, did you have a lot to drink? Maybe we can say, hey, do you want to talk about it? Really, I've got the time. I will sit with you and I will listen. Maybe instead of saying, did you clearly say no? Really, did you say no? Say, hey, I'm sorry you had to go through this. Really, I'm sorry. My heart breaks. Maybe instead of saying, well, with what you were wearing, of course, you probably looked provocative. Maybe we could say, it doesn't matter if you danced with him, if you laughed with him, or if they saw you leave with him, that's their problem. No means no, no matter what you say it. And this in the context of females or males. Couldn't our say be this? Wouldn't that be so powerful? Maybe instead of saying, if you speak up, you can destroy his life. It could have just been a mistake. You know how guys can be sometimes. No, maybe we should say, he is not the victim here. I can go with you to report it if you want. I'll journey alongside you because this needs to stop. Because if it doesn't stop here, it will continue to happen somewhere else. Instead of saying, look, just try not to think about it anymore. Say, you are not to blame for anything. It's not your fault. Instead of saying, they're done. I've got some others that I wrote down as well because I want us to as a church community, have these words in us. And these are some of the things that could be helpful to us of what not to say. I say, look, I'm not a champion in this. I don't know what to say sometimes, but here's some stuff that, hey, we don't want to say. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Stop crying and just put it behind you. Why are you so upset? That happened years ago. No. That's not what we're going to be saying. What not to say? Why didn't you do something about it? No. What not to say? I can't believe you didn't try to make them stop. No. I'm going to find them and I'm going to hurt them for what they did to you. No, we're not going to say that. What not to say? Don't tell anyone else. We will handle this ourselves. No, we won't. We're stronger together. We're not going to say that. Did you bring this on yourself some way? No, we're not going to say that. It's just time to move on and get over it. No, we're not going to say that. This, as we saw, impacts life for years. So what should we say? Well, can we say something like this? I love you no matter what happened. I love you with the love that God gives me. The love that he gives each and every one of us, no matter who you are. If you're the person who's the victim or the victimizer, that same grace is extended to you, and God wants to do something in and through you. Maybe we should say, I'm with you no matter what, till the end. Till the end. Till the end. Maybe we should say, hey, we're going to get through this together. Maybe we should say, hey, you're so brave and courageous, and I'm proud of you for telling me the truth. Maybe we should say, hey, you are more beautiful to me now than you have ever been. And nothing will change that. Nothing. And maybe we should say, I may not understand, like honestly, I don't get everything. And I don't understand what you're feeling, but I'm here for you. I'm here for you. Maybe we should say, hey, the grace of God and the love of Jesus will sustain you. It's something that is a constant. Maybe we should say, hey, I'll go to counseling with you. I'll journey alongside you. I'll go with you. Maybe you should say, hey, we will get you the help you need no matter what it costs. And as a community, as a church, that is our voice. That is who we want to be, and we will journey alongside whoever to try and help them come to a place where they are stronger. And maybe we should say, hey, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's what sin does. It comes in and it comes to steal and destroy. So today, as a community, as a church community, Can we get a bit more courageous? Can we get a bit more, strength and voice in our vocal cords? That we'll stand up against what we see is a bit awkward and shouldn't be that way, and we'll speak it and call it out? Can we come alongside our young kids and the youth in this church and journey alongside them and help them in their journey? Can we come alongside any person in this community and say, hey, we're here for you, we're stronger together. We're stronger together. We got these pamphlets in the foyer. And I truly believe that we're stronger together, not only as a church, but there's so many organizations out there who are journeying alongside people who've struggled with this stuff and are doing a fabulous job. And if you need help, or if you know someone who may need help, I want to encourage you to grab one of these pamphlets, get in touch with some of these organizations. Maybe that's your next step. Like today's your leave. What is God saying is your next step today that you need to do? Here's a few that I just wanted to put on the screen. We know the police. We can call them emergency. There's the rape crisis line. This website, rpe.co.nz, great resource. Just like, hey, where can I speak to someone where I know it's going to be confidential? There's Safe to Talk. There's Skylight. There's Lifeline. There's Youthline. There's Gracegate. Yeah, we got all the team's cards are in the foyer. And today, if you leave this place, I want you to leave feeling encouraged and knowing that there are people here who want to journey alongside you with no judgment. I want to encourage you maybe, hey, if you feel, hey, I need to talk to someone after this program today, team's going to be in here. You can just stick around and we can chat to you, or feel free to grab a card and just send us a text message. Just say, hey, I need to do something. We want to be here for you as a community. So today as we leave, I want to ask the worship band to come up, and we're going to sing this song that we sang as we started. But the song speaks about take another step, and honesty. I saw on that board that it said, hey, sometimes the first step is the hardest step to take. But know that we're a community and there's a God here who wants to take that step with you. So as we sing this song, let's claim it. And let's lift our voice. Let's rip off, the duct tape on this issue. And let's be a community who's going to actually call things out and be there for one another. So let's stand and sing this song.